Welcome back. President Trump visited Puerto Rico yesterday, where he met with officials to talk about aid relief. He handed out supplies after back-to-back hurricanes. Turks and Caicos opened its beach, meanwhile, the front doors to tourists last week. Here to discuss the return of the tourism industry following this tragedy are Jack Ezon, president of Ovation Vacations, and Nikheel Advanj joining us right now. Great to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us. And Nikheel, you're the founder and COO and principal of Grace Bay Resorts. Tell us what it has been like these last several months in the face of these hurricanes, where even the areas that have not been hit have been sort of coupled under this umbrella of damage.
I thank you so much. I think it's been interesting. It's been a challenging couple of weeks. Turks and Caicos hasn't seen anything like this since the 60s, or never before. So I think what's important to learn is that we're a group of 40 islands. Some islands were hit, and we were able to open our tourist doors again because the island of Providenciales, which is built to Miami-Dade code, really was not very affected. So those areas came up quickly. I think the leadership of the governor, the premier of the country, came together with the private sector. We looked at power, utilities coming back on, the airport getting started. I think it's an amazing effort to bring everybody together and get things started again. There's some areas, like the capital, Grand Turk, that needs a bit more help. So I think once you get the information of what is going on and what needs to be done, then you can see what can open. And again, the Caribbean is such a large destination. From New York to Miami, that's about 1,300 miles. It's like from Bahamas to St. Lucia. So what happens in St. Lucia doesn't really affect the Bahamas. And so I think sometimes we say the Caribbean, and it's this one group of islands, right, but it's really quite wide.
So have you been forced, though, to take prices down, to do anything you can to lure in customers? Jack, what about you?
I've actually seen the opposite. Yeah? There's so much compression because it's about 5 or 6 islands that are very popular, such as Anguilla and St. Bart's, which are incredible draws.
And were they affected?
Those were some of the most affected. Those in the British and American Virgin Islands. So there's compression in the marketplace. So actually, the prices are steady or going up. Listen, time to book for Christmas, or whatever's left, or the winter season.
The main business and the main revenues that's generated from a lot of these islands is tourism, right? So I mean, this could affect the whole region for a while going forward, right? I mean, it could take a big hit financially.
Yeah, and sadly so, because people have this misconception that the entire Caribbean's been washed out. I can't tell you how many calls we get a day. Where do we go now? There's no more Caribbean. And in fact, it's only been about 4 or 5 islands, or a small region of it. And as Nikheel said, it's about 1,300 miles from top to bottom. We still have the Riviera Maya. We still have Antigua, which is in perfect shape, and St. Lucia.
Antigua's in perfect shape?
Yeah. Strangely enough, Barbuda, right across the waterway, has been devastated, but everything's up and running in Antigua.
And I'm sure that, there are things in place, right? And when devastation like this occurs, that if you own a resort, if you own a hotel and a business there, that you say, all right, how do we make sure that what happened in Puerto Rico doesn't happen to our businesses here? How do we make sure that we can open up shortly afterward? And so I'm sure those preparations are a big learning, part of these storms.
I have to agree with you totally. I think having a good government and good leadership at that time for crisis is important. The private sector comes together. They need leadership. A lot of the NGOs come in. And as you've seen in many areas, some of these NGOs get activated right away, and that works really well for the country because at that time you need power, you need generators, you need water. So all these things, there are always ways we can do better, but I'm really, really proud of Turks and Caicos to see how it came together really quickly. Everybody got supplies. People are it's all hands on deck. You got the minister who's in charge of disaster management driving the dump truck.
Wow.
These are the stories. There are a lot of great stories that come out of this, and a lot of great learnings as well.
What about the check-in? I mean, making the check-in desk the first line of defense. I mean, obviously we're talking about the massacre in Las Vegas, but as a result of that, we're beginning to see increased efforts, security efforts in hotels across the country. The Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas has started patting down guests. The NYPD in New York is training hotel staff to recognize gun cases that guests may have with them. Is increased security on the agenda for Grace Bay?
It definitely is. There's no doubt about that. And going back into my history with the Ritz-Carltons and that, in the last 10, 15 years, we've realized the world has changed. And we've got to be really, really alert. And all you need to do is get some information to the authorities. So we've got to be a lot more alert. I don't know whether we'll do pat-downs yet. That's not on the agenda in the Caribbean. But, think about the Bali bombings. So it could happen anywhere. We have to be alert.
Real quick, how do bookings look right now for the winter?
Bookings are really strong. We've actually moved about $18 million worth of business throughout the Caribbean and Mexico. Bookings are strong. There's a lot of concern, a lot of questions, and people are not really sure what to do. And that's where a great travel advisor really comes in to help navigate the world
And
today.
if people had plans to go to Puerto Rico, to go to some of the other islands, what happens to them?
We're moving. Everybody's getting their money back,
other
and
islands.
there's plenty of other places that are still great open for business. So that's the good news.
Yeah.